Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Jewel Onuk and welcome to True Crime Jewels and welcome to another episode of Enigma by Jewels. If you're not subscribed to my channel, kindly subscribe to my channel, like this video and comment if you have anything you want me to talk about, any other true crime story you want me to cover, and I'll be up for the task, trust me. So guys, my name is Jewel, like I said, and today's case is just a very crazy one. So today's case happened in France. I really want to go to France, and it's just like 2 hours away from London, but I just don't always have the time to, like, one thing about me, I don't know how to plan. But I'm going to dive into this case because I actually really do love this case, and this case has so many things I always think about anyway. So today's case is quite a very interesting one. It happened like 80 years ago and it's just so wild. It has incest, it has homosexuality, it has murder, it's just a very strange, bizarre, weird case that is also intriguing at the same time. But yeah, let's go into this whole story. So we're going to take this case back to February 3rd, 1932. In Le Mans, there was an event that actually occurred, and this was a very unexpected event. Like, nobody actually ever thought that this was going to happen. This event actually involved 4 people, 2 victims and 2 perpetrators. So the victims were a mother, a daughter, and then the perpetrators obviously were their 2 maids, Christine and Lea Papin. See how beautiful these girls are, or these girls were. Just see how beautiful they were. So the series of events that happened actually made people to think that, why would these 2 girls just become monsters overnight? Because like I said, how these people looked, you won't even think that, oh, this actually happened to them. Although, like, obviously their background is not as normal as the normal person, but like, people were just thinking, like, no one would have ever thought that these 2 sisters would end up doing the crime that they actually ended up doing. Lea and Christine, they actually grew up in a dysfunctional family. They were 7 years apart from each other. They grew up seeing their dad being so disrespectful and so aggressive towards them, and their father was just a very big molester. Sources said that their father raped their elder sister Emilia, and this made Emilia to run away from the house. And when she ran away from the house, she actually became a nun. And their mom actually divorced the father. And when their mom divorced the father, she didn't take her 2 other daughters with her. So it just literally became Christine and Lea just against the world, because obviously their father is a very nonchalant and useless man, and literally they have like these other 2 children. So obviously these 2 girls just decided to cope with themselves and just themselves alone. When Christine and Lea's parents' divorce like ended and everything, they were actually sent to a psychiatric unit to just go and stay, so that they'll be able to recover from the divorce and the trauma that the divorce of their parents brought to them. So after they had stayed in this psychiatric hospital, was it a hospital? It was like basically like a facility. So after they had stayed in this psychiatric facility, they were now released. And were they not like they were released, but was it like a prison? I don't think it was a prison, but like, you know, like when people talk about like psychiatric facility or psychiatric wards, people just think that you're locked in there. Some of these psychiatric facilities, they actually allow them to hold their phones and things like that, but they're just very mindful of things they hold. So personally, I actually do not actually think it was like a prison. It was just because they didn't do anything. It was more like a psychiatrist. So it was more like a facility to just make them get over the fact that, yes, they've experienced this trauma. They've come from an abusive family. Their dad is literally a no-show man, a useless man, and their mom, when she couldn't stand the marriage again, she divorced and she ran away and she left her children. Her elder sister was raped and she became a nun and she ran away. So obviously it was just wise for, you know, the state to just like put them, like, these children, they've been through a lot, just put them in a psychiatric facility. And when they were released, they decided that, okay, they wanted to be housemates. But one thing about these 2 girls, these 2 sisters, that they actually were so close to themselves, so much that they always insisted that they wanted to work alone. They just never wanted to work separated from each other. They just always wanted to be alone. So whoever wanted them had to, like, you know, hire the two of them at once. In 1926, Christine, she was 21 and Lea was 15 years, and they were actually hired by Renee Lansing. So Renee Lansing, they had this mansion, and obviously they were obviously well off, so they hired Christine and Christine and Lea. Yeah, Christine and Lea. So they hired Christine and Lea to be their in-house mates. This is the first case I've heard that a guy is named Renee. But anyways, Renee was a retired lawyer, and he was married to his wife Leonie, and they had a 27-year-old daughter named Genevieve, but the French, they pronounce it Genevieve, so I'm going to pronounce it Genevieve. Renee, when he hired Christine and Lea, he literally told them, well, like, see, you guys are going to work 14 hours a day. 14 hours a day, come on, man. Like, 14 hours a day. I can't even do, like, I work 8 hours a day, and it's just such a stretch. So imagine these people had to work 14 hours a day, and then once a week they had like half day once a week to themselves, if that makes sense. So these people were literally working their lives, their ass out. And I don't know how it was. That was 1920 something, where human labor, I don't think human labor or labor force was taken as seriously as it is now. But then again, like 14 hours a day, what is that? That is so crazy. But little did Renee know that he was actually inviting his family's murderers into his own house. Christine and Lea, they usually kept to themselves. They had no other interest with any other person apart from themselves. They need to talk to themselves and everything. And they were actually very so hardworking. So, you know, like I said, these people, they were like the upper class French people. I know how classy French people are. So this just made them so a subject of envy. So like other French upper class families, they were actually very envious of them, because they had these hardworking maids who actually had no interest in any other person. They spoke to no other person, and they actually always did their job. So Christine and Lea, they only spoke to themselves. They only had interest in each other. They were only close to themselves. They had no outside friends. So this just made them work together and work as friends and work as, you know, work as people, work as themselves, work within themselves. And this just made the whole other upper French class people to just be envious of them because of their maids. That is so weird. That is so weird. Christine or Lea, they actually never even spoke to Leonie, that's Renee's wife, during the time that they worked there, like for several years. They had worked there for years. They actually never ever spoken to them. And Leonie, that's Renee's wife, used to like write things she wanted them to do. Instead of like saying it out, she actually did like written instructions, and she was a perfectionist. She expected nothing but the best. So obviously she was very strict as to what she wanted in her house. And Genevieve, on the other hand, she used to do like this white glove test. So basically she would just wear white gloves, and like if the girls had finished like maybe cleaning a table, she would go with white gloves and just like test it to make sure that, you know, it's clean. My dad will beat the hell out of you. Like, he will be like, who are you? 7 years had actually passed, and there was no single incident. The girls, they seemed to like do their job very well, very professionally. But on the evening of 2nd of February 1933, Renee was actually meant to meet his wife and his daughter in his brother-in-law's house, because his brother-in-law was doing a party in his house. So he went to the house. He was expecting to like meet his wife and his daughter there, and he did not meet them there. So he became kind of worried, and he decided to go back to the house and, you know, find out what he was doing, because initially he thought that, okay, maybe they were getting dressed. I know how people always say how women take forever to get prepared. So at first he thought that that was the problem, but then like when he saw that, oh, they did not show up, he became like slightly worried, and he was like, okay, let me just go home and find out what is going on. But when he went home, he was not prepared to meet what he had actually met. 2nd February, Leonie and Genevieve, they had actually gone shopping, and when they went shopping, the plan was that after going shopping, they would just go straight to the dinner. So meanwhile, the sisters, they did their own errands, and this also included them going to the repair shop to pick up the iron. So when they went to the repair shop and they picked up the iron, they came home, and then they plugged the iron into the electricity circuit, and all of a sudden, like, the light went off. This is just normal. Sometimes your microwave, like, not even my toaster does that a lot. Like when I'm using it, toaster is the one, yeah, the one you put the bread inside, it just strips off the whole electricity, and I have to like go under the stairs and like flip the lights back on. So literally these people just put their iron inside, plug the iron to the electric circuit, and obviously there was a blackout, and then the light was off. When this had happened, the sisters had agreed within themselves that they were going to do it later, because they had not expected that the mother and daughter, Genevieve and her mom, did not expect them to be home sooner, because everybody had thought that from shopping they would have, you know, gone for the party. The girls, they're actually doing their bits, and then she was surprised to actually meet Leonie like in the hallway, and then Leonie started shouting at Christine, and then she's like threatening to cut their pay, and Christine is like shouting back because like she refused to accept responsibility, because obviously this is a technical error, it was no fault of theirs. And then this is how like they had this whole heated argument on the stairs and everything. And from my understanding, this is the first time that they had released their anger. God knows what these people have been going through all this time. Like, this just happens. Like, you can't keep so many things in you for a long time, but there's just a time where your body's like, you know what, fuck it, I don't give a flipping fuck, and then just goes on and just starts flipping. So I feel like that's what actually happened with Christine. Like, she just got so fed up at this point, and she just fled, and then she refused to take responsibility for what Leonie had actually accused her of doing. Suddenly, Christine had grabbed a pewter jug and she just slammed it on Leonie. And then when Genevieve, like when she heard this commotion, she actually ran to her mom's defense, and Christine actually grabbed her and hit her. And then this actually, like, you know, woke Lea up from her sleep, because she was sleeping in the attic, and then she came down to like find out what was going on. And then Christine shouted to her that she should get like more weapons. And at first, Lea, she was startled. She was like, huh, what's going on? Like, why you want me to get more weapons? But you know what, like, she all her life she's only always known her elder sister, so she decided to follow the orders of her older sister. Taking the knife from Lea, Christine actually slashed Genevieve, and this caused her to cry out. So when she was crying out, her mom like tried to like go towards her daughter to protect her daughter, but Christine got so mad that she actually stepped on Leonie's hands, and then she now like shouted at her sister. She was like, go smash her head into the ground and tear her eyes out. Damn. Motivated by Christine, Lea just sprung into action. She just grabbed the hammer and she just hit Leonie so hard that Leonie had fallen on the ground. Then she used this hammer and she was like hitting Leonie's face. She was hitting Leonie's face. She hit Leonie's face till like Leonie became so unrecognizable. Leonie, she actually fell on the ground and she was so hopeless. She saw one of her daughter's eyes just roll down to her, which is just so crazy. When both the mother and the daughter were near the brink of death, when they were almost dead, so these sisters, they actually did the final blow, and then they finally killed them. But you would think that these people, they still stop here. They didn't stop here. Instead, they lifted up their skirt and then they cut out their buttocks and their thighs. You would not even think that someone who's been so quiet for 7 whole years, these two people have been so quiet for 7 whole years, they've not even been in this kind of situation before. Them being in such situation, and then they are literally like overdoing it at this point. Like, you would just begin to wonder, like, how did I miss a point where something like this was meant to happen and it did not happen? After Leonie had died and her daughter Genevieve had died, they did not stop there. Like, they just literally, like, you know, opened their skirt up, carved out their buttocks, carved out their thighs. And at that point, Genevieve, she was on her period, so they took her menstrual blood and they doused it. Oh god, these girls were so crazy. They took her menstrual blood and they doused it on Leonie's body, as if like maybe they were preparing turkey or chicken or something like that. I don't know what they were preparing. And when they were done, they actually locked all the doors, and then they went back upstairs, and that's where they were. And they took their clothes off and they started to cuddle naked in bed, and they just acted like nothing happened, like there was no scene that actually happened at that point. And they just laid there like cuddling, waiting for whatever will happen. Somebody please Somebody help me. So when Renee had reached home, he was like very concerned because he saw that all the doors were locked and there was no light, and he had like checked up the attic. He had not even seen a candle light in the attic, and everywhere was just dark when he like looked through the windows and everything. So he tried to go into the house and he could not go into the house, so like he decided to call the police. So when he called the police and the police came into the house, they knocked the whole door down, and then they just from the door they just saw blood everywhere, and then they now saw the dissected bodies of these two women. And this actually made her husband Renee to actually throw up because of the way everything looked. Obviously, like that was not a sight to behold, so he became sick in his stomach and he just threw every content in his stomach out because he did not expect that to happen. Only one officer was left downstairs with Renee because they were trying to, you know what happened. And then there was like other officers, they were like following the trail of blood, and this trail of blood just led them to the attic. And this when they actually opened the attic door, and then they just found the naked women in bed with each other's arms. Like the women, they were still naked. Christine and Lea, they were like literally naked in each other's arms, hugging and acting like nothing had happened. But their maid uniforms were actually stained with blood, and by their uniforms were the hammers and knives that they actually used to dissect and do the whole murder scene. And the police actually arrested them, and they did not even waste any time to give in their confessions. Immediately they confessed to the crime. And the people of Lemans, they actually did not sleep well that night. They didn't sleep well because obviously none of them actually expected that something like this was actually ever going to happen. And they were just wondering like how, aside from these two girls who spoke to nobody, they were just so quiet, they did their job so professionally, like they were literally envied by other people because of their maids, which is still weird to me. But then again, like people were wondering like what actually could have led to this. The people had believed that the murders had actually resulted from the exploitation of the workers. How, like I said, like the workers were told to work 14 hours in a day, and then they just had like half a day in the week for themselves, which I feel like that just didn't even make sense to be honest, whatever. That just did not actually make sense, because like you would just sit and just think like how the hell. But anyways, the media was like, yeah, that they actually did it because they felt like the maids were actually exploited by Renee and his family, the Lancelins family. So they just felt like that is what like these people have been keeping quiet for literally a very long time. And then all of a sudden they just decided to snap, and not only did they snap, they actually went overboard. Following their arrest, the sisters were actually put in separate jails or separate prison, and Christine, she could actually not even get the separation between her and her sister. There was even a time that she like wanted to like gouge her eyes out because she was very depressed and like she was in great distress. So following this, the authorities, they are like, you know what, let's just make you see your sister just for once under supervision. And when they allowed them to be in the same cell together, Christine her attitude towards her sister was more overly sexual than what you would actually expect like how sisters to behave. So she was actually behaving more like a lover to her sister than an actual sister. Do you understand? So in September 1933, about 8 months after the whole murder, Christine and Lea, they were finally prosecuted, and this was like national event. Like the media, they had streamed it live because obviously, like I said, this was something that they had never ever come across before. And there was like a whole courthouse. I don't even know how they managed to pick their judges, because judges are actually not even meant to know about a case before they actually prosecuted. Because if the case was a very, very big case, what's the guarantee that the judges like had not even heard about it? Like that is just something that is so inevitable, if that makes sense. That is not inevitable. I think that's what I meant to say. But anyways, that is inevitable. You guys know what I'm trying to say. So after hearing all this case, the judge decided to sentence Christine to death and give Lea 10 years in prison, because he believed that Christine was the perpetrator behind the whole crime, and Lea was just following along her sister, because all her life she has also following her sister. And then the judge actually believed that Christine had actually dominated Leah's personality so much that Lea literally had no personality. Let's not forget that, yeah, they are 7 years apart, and Lea and Christine, like, they just had their self. They spoke to no other person than their self. They just knew their self. So the judge just believed that Christine made Lea to have no personality. Like, Lea had no personality of her own, and she had to do this because of her sister. However, after some time, Christine's decision, her persecution, was actually reduced. So instead of her being sentenced to death, they gave her life imprisonment. But regardless, like, Christine was like, her life without Lea was useless, so she literally would starve herself to death. She was even sent to a mental institution in Rennes, and not in Rennes, in Rennes. And when she was sent there, when they gave her food to eat, she won't eat, because obviously she just wanted to be with her sister. And on the 18th of May 1937, she had actually died from starvation. On the other hand, Lea, she actually proved herself to be a strong person. She was sentenced to 10 years, but she was released 2 years earlier because she basically displayed good behavior in the gym. I said in the gym, oh my god, in prison. So she was released based on good behavior. And then she located her mom, and she moved in with her mom. She stayed with her mom, and she picked up another identity. And since then, she actually lived a very quiet life, and she died in 2001. So you guys, just let me know what you guys think about this case, because this case is just so weird. But one thing I always found out about this case was that it was in 1931, and obviously at this time homosexuality was not a thing. It was not accepted in the world in general, if I'm being honest, because yeah, homosexuality was not accepted in the world. But like in all the articles that I actually read in Murderpedia, Medium, whatever, like I never for once got the impression that they focused on the incest or the homosexuality, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm the new person that's pointing this out, but I noticed that like they did not even like talk about the fact that this was a homosexual case, like not like a homosexual case, that these people were practicing homosexuality and incest. They spoke more about the murder and things like that. They even, like, you know, they knew that all these people were going through, but they even like allowed Lea and Christine to meet once, although it was supervised. But then like that was actually intriguing. It's not like it adds anything to the case. I'm like, for a time as 1933, like you would think that would be the main focus on this thing. Instead, people were wondering like, why did these people do this thing, like what made them do it? And that kind of gave me like, I was lucky, do you understand, happy, because like normally they'll be like, oh, it's because they're homosexuals. But yeah, I don't know what you guys think about this case. Let me know. And yeah, this was just a very wild one. It just makes me think, because those girls were so beautiful. Like you would not even ever think that, you would never see them like do a thing like that, if that makes sense. Let me know what you guys think about this case, and if you guys have any more suggestions you guys want me to do, let me know in the comment section. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I really hope you guys enjoyed this case. I know I sounded like tired, because I'm actually so tired. I've been awake throughout the whole night. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. I really do appreciate. Until next time, bye.